The kitchen clock read 2:13 a.m. when my phone buzzed with the text that would end my marriage. But let me back up a bit, because this story doesn't start with Jenna's ultimatum. It starts 3 hours earlier when a complete stranger decided to be a good Samaritan. My name is Eddie Parrish, and I own a sheet metal fabrication shop on the south side of town. Nothing glamorous. We make ductwork, industrial ventilation systems, and the occasional custom piece for local contractors. It's honest work that keeps the lights on and pays for Jenna's expensive tastes. Or at least, it used to. Jenna works at Lux Boutique downtown, selling overpriced handbags to women who lunch. She's beautiful in that polished way that requires 2 hours of preparation and costs more than my monthly truck payment. When we met 5 years ago, I thought I'd hit the lottery. A woman like that, choosing a guy like me? I should have known better. She always called it just dancing. Every Friday night, like clockwork, she'd slip into something that barely qualified as clothing and announce she was going out with the girls. Melissa, her best friend, would pick her up in that ridiculous white BMW, and off they'd go to Club Neon or whatever trendy place was hot that week. At first, I didn't mind. Hell, I encouraged it. Go have fun, I'd say, settling in with a beer and whatever game was on. You work hard, you deserve to blow off steam. I meant it too. Marriage doesn't mean you stop being an individual, right? But little things started adding up. New dresses that never made an appearance at home, fresh perfume at 4 a.m. that wasn't the vanilla scent she usually wore, text messages that got deleted the second I walked into the room. When I asked about her nights out, she'd laugh and say I was acting like her father, not her husband. Eddie, you're being paranoid, she'd say, kissing my cheek with lips that tasted like expensive champagne. It's just dancing. Don't you trust me? The thing is, I did trust her, or I tried to. I told myself that clubs were harmless, that wedding rings meant something even under strobe lights. I convinced myself that the gnawing feeling in my gut was just insecurity, the blue-collar guy's fear that his beautiful wife would realize she could do better. Then came that Friday night 3 weeks ago. Jenna had left around 9, wearing a black dress that cost more than most people's rent. Don't wait up, she'd called over her shoulder. Melissa wants to try that new place on 5th Street. I was in my workshop, welding a custom piece for the Morrison job, when my phone chimed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Probably spam or some telemarketer who didn't understand the concept of business hours. But something made me look. It was a video file. No message, no explanation. Just a 30-second clip filmed from across a crowded dance floor. The quality was grainy, but not so grainy that I couldn't recognize my wife. Jenna was there, pressed close to a man in a fitted jacket that probably cost more than I made in a week. His hand was low on her back, fingers spread like he owned her. She leaned into him, laughing at something he whispered in her ear, and when the bass dropped, she kissed him. Not a friendly peck or an accidental brush of lips. A real kiss, the kind that said they'd done this before. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. At 11:45, she'd texted me, "Having so much fun with the girls. Don't wait up." I watched that video 17 times before my hands stopped shaking. Then I screenshot the timestamp, saved the file to 3 different locations, and waited. The house felt different after that. Every surface she touched, every chair she sat in, every lie she told with those perfectly glossed lips, it all felt contaminated. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I've learned that in business, you don't show your hand until you're ready to play it. For 3 weeks, I watched and waited. I documented every girls' night, every late arrival, every new piece of jewelry that appeared without explanation. I hired a private investigator, a tough, cynical woman named Detective Sarah Lacey, who specialized in matrimonial cases. "Honey," she told me during our first meeting, "if your gut is telling you something's wrong, it probably is. Wives don't usually kiss strangers unless they're not strangers anymore." Lacey did her job well. Too well. Within a week, she had photos, receipts, and a timeline that painted a picture I didn't want to see. The man in the video was Brandon Kessler, owner of Kessler Luxury Motors downtown. 34 years old, never married, and apparently my wife's regular Friday night entertainment for the past 4 months. The receipts were the worst part. Hotel rooms at the Marriott downtown, dinner at Romano's, the Italian place Jenna always said was too expensive for a regular Tuesday. Jewelry from Tiffany's that I'd never seen her wear. All paid for by Brandon's Black American Express card. "Your wife's been living a double life," Lacey told me, sliding the evidence across her desk. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I knew what I was going to do. I was going to wait for the right moment, and then I was going to end this charade on my terms. That moment came last Friday night. Jenna had been particularly affectionate all week, probably feeling guilty about whatever she and Brandon had planned. She made my favorite dinner, wore the perfume I'd bought her for our anniversary, and even suggested we watch a movie together. Actually, she said around 8 o'clock, Melissa just called. She's having a crisis with Derek again. I should probably go talk to her. The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly I almost admired the craftsmanship. Almost. Of course, I said, not looking up from my newspaper. Tell Melissa I hope things work out. She kissed the top of my head, grabbed her purse, and headed for the door. Don't wait up. You know how these things go. Oh, I knew exactly how these things went. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with her text. Stop overreacting. I'm having fun. If you don't like it, then let's get a divorce. I stared at those words until they stopped feeling real. She was giving me an ultimatum. My wife of 5 years, who was at that very moment probably wrapped around another man in some hotel room, was threatening to divorce me because I had the audacity to care where she spent her nights. I didn't call her. I didn't text back with angry words or desperate pleas. I just opened my photo gallery, found that video from 3 weeks ago, and hit send. No caption, no threats, no explanation, just the truth, delivered in digital silence. The response was immediate. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. 12 missed calls in 3 minutes. Then the texts started flooding in. Who sent you that? Eddie, please call me. It's not what it looks like. Please don't do this. I can explain everything. I turned off the phone and went to work. By the time Jenna's key turned in the lock 23 minutes later, I had everything ready. Her suitcase, the expensive one she'd bought for our honeymoon, sat packed by the front door. On the kitchen table, next to her usual coffee mug, were 3 sets of documents. Divorce papers, a property settlement agreement, and a restraining order application that I wouldn't file unless she made things difficult. I'd also printed out every photo, receipt, and timeline that Detective Lacey had provided. The evidence was organized in a neat folder, like a presentation for a particularly unpleasant business meeting. The front door slammed open, and Jenna rushed in, her carefully applied makeup streaked with tears and panic. She was still wearing that black dress, but now it looked wrinkled and desperate. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the suitcase, the papers, the folder of evidence. Eddie, please, she started, her voice cracking. Let me explain. That video is 3 weeks old, I interrupted, my voice calm and steady. Would you like to see the others? Detective Lacey was very thorough. The color drained from her face. You hired a detective? I hired a professional to document what I already knew. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down, Jenna. We need to talk. She remained standing, her hands shaking as she reached for her phone. I need to call someone. You need to sit down and listen. The steel in my voice surprised even me. You offered divorce. I'm accepting. The only question now is whether we do this easy or hard. Jenna finally sat, her legs seeming to give out beneath her. Eddie, you don't understand. Brandon and I, we're not... Brandon Kessler, 34, owner of Kessler Luxury Motors. You've been seeing him every Friday night for 4 months. Hotel rooms at the Marriott, dinner at Romano's, shopping trips to Tiffany's. Should I continue? Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. How did you... No? Because I'm not stupid, Jenna. I'm just patient. I slid the folder across the table. Take a look. It's all there. Dates, times, receipts. Your boyfriend has expensive taste. Too bad he's about to lose his favorite toy. She opened the folder with trembling fingers, her face growing paler with each page. This is stalking. This is illegal. No, this is documentation. Everything here was obtained legally by a licensed private investigator, unlike adultery, which is still grounds for divorce in this state. I leaned back in my chair, feeling in control for the first time in months. You know what's funny? If you'd just asked for a divorce 6 months ago, you could have walked away with half of everything. Now? Well, let's just say adultery affects property settlement in interesting ways. You can't prove anything, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and played the video. The sound of club music filled our quiet kitchen, followed by her breathless moans as Brandon kissed her neck. The timestamp is interesting, don't you think? Especially compared to the text you sent me that same night about having dinner with your mother. Jenna's face crumpled. The tears came then, real ones this time, not the calculated waterwork she used when she wanted a new handbag. Eddie, please, I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. 4 months isn't a mistake, Jenna. It's a relationship. I stood up, suddenly tired of the whole performance. The papers are straightforward. You get your car, your clothes, and whatever money is in your personal account. I keep the house, the business, and my dignity. You can't just throw me out. I live here too. You live here when you're not living at the Marriott with Brandon. I picked up her suitcase and set it beside her chair. I changed the locks an hour ago. Your key won't work anymore. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. The Eddie she knew would have begged and pleaded and tried to work things out. He would have gone to counseling and pretended that trust was something that could be rebuilt with enough effort and forgiveness. But that Eddie died the moment I watched her kiss another man while lying to my face. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. I hear Brandon has a nice place downtown, or there's always Melissa's couch. I walked to the front door and held it open. Your choice. She gathered her things with shaking hands, shooting desperate glances in my direction. At the door, she turned back one last time. Eddie, please, we can work this out. I love you. No, I said quietly. You love what I provide. There's a difference. After she left, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my wife's betrayal. The house felt bigger somehow, like a weight had been lifted from its foundation. But I wasn't done, not even close. The next morning, I called Detective Lacey. I need you to keep watching them, I told her. Document everything. Where they go, what they do, who they see. I want a complete picture. Eddie, she said carefully, the divorce is going to go through. You've got enough evidence to bury her in court. What more do you need? Justice, I said. Jenna and Brandon think they can destroy my marriage and walk away without consequences. They're wrong. What kind of consequences are we talking about here? The legal kind, the public kind, the kind that make them think twice before they ruin someone else's life. I took a sip of coffee and smiled. Don't worry, Detective. I'm not planning anything violent. I'm planning something worse. What's worse than violence? Humiliation, social death, the complete destruction of their carefully crafted public images. I set down my cup and pulled out a notebook. Brandon owns a luxury car dealership. His whole business depends on reputation, on being seen as successful and trustworthy. What happens when his customers find out he's a homewrecker? And Jenna? Works in luxury retail, sells to the wives of wealthy men. How's business going to be when those wives know she's the type of woman who steals husbands? Detective Lacey was quiet for a long moment. You're talking about destroying their careers. I'm talking about consequences. Natural, logical consequences for their choices. I flipped open my notebook, where I'd already started making plans. They wanted to play games with my life. Now we're going to play games with theirs. The first phase of my plan was already in motion. I'd sent anonymous copies of the hotel receipts to Jenna's boss at Lux Boutique, along with a note explaining that their employee was using company time to conduct an affair with a married man. It wasn't true. I was the married one. But perception was more important than facts in retail. I'd also sent similar information to the Better Business Bureau, suggesting they investigate whether Brandon was using his business accounts for personal expenses. Again, technically legal, but the kind of thing that raised questions about character and judgment. But that was just the beginning. I had bigger plans for both of them. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Eddie Parrish? The voice was male, nervous. Depends who's asking. This is about your wife, and Brandon Kessler. I think we need to talk. The man on the phone turned out to be Derek Matthews, Melissa's on and off boyfriend of 3 years. We met at Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar on the east side where the beer was cheap and the lighting was dim enough to hide embarrassment. Derek was about my age, maybe a little younger, with the soft look of a man who worked behind a desk. He kept glancing at the door like he expected someone to burst in and catch him talking to me. I probably shouldn't be here, he said, nursing his second beer. Melissa would kill me if she knew. Then why are you here? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his drink. Because I'm tired of being lied to, and because what they did to you, it's not right. Derek had his own story, it turned out. For months, he'd suspected that Melissa was cheating on him during their girls' nights out. He'd hired his own private investigator and discovered that Melissa wasn't just Jenna's wingwoman. She was running her own side operation with Rico Vasquez, Brandon's business partner and social media manager. It's like a whole network, Derek explained, sliding a folder across the table. Jenna and Brandon, Melissa and Rico, they've been covering for each other, providing alibis, even double dating at expensive restaurants while we sit at home like idiots. The photos in Derek's folder painted a picture that made my stomach turn. Not just because of the betrayal, but because of how organized it all was. This wasn't passion or romance. It was a calculated deception involving multiple people and elaborate planning. How long have you known? I asked. 2 weeks. I've been trying to figure out what to do about it. He looked up at me with tired eyes. Then I heard through the grapevine that you'd thrown Jenna out. Figured you might want to know what we're really dealing with. We? Unless you're planning to let them get away with it. I studied Derek for a moment. He didn't look like much. Soft around the middle, thinning hair, the kind of guy who probably got picked last for teams in high school. But there was something in his eyes that I recognized. The quiet fury of a man who'd been pushed too far. What did you have in mind? Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. Rico's got 40,000 Instagram followers. He posts constantly about his lifestyle, his car, his success, very image conscious. And he's been posting photos from his dates with Melissa, claiming she's his girlfriend. Not his side piece, his actual girlfriend. Melissa doesn't know because she doesn't follow his social media. I saw where this was going. You want to show her. I want to show everyone. Rico's built his whole brand on being this successful, trustworthy businessman. What happens when his followers find out he's a liar and a cheat? We spent the next hour planning. Derek had access to Melissa's phone and social media accounts. She'd given him her passwords months ago during one of their reconciliation periods. He also had detailed information about Rico's business dealings and social circle. I had the resources and the motivation. My sheet metal shop might not be glamorous, but it was successful. And success in a small city meant connections. I knew contractors, suppliers, city officials, and business owners. More importantly, I knew their wives, and their wives knew everyone else's business. There's something else, Derek said as we were getting ready to leave. Brandon's not just cheating with your wife. I stopped mid-reach for my wallet. What do you mean? I mean he's got a pattern. Rico let it slip one night when he was drunk. Brandon's been running the same game for years, finds married women, wines and dines them, gets them to leave their husbands, then moves on to the next one. The rage that hit me was so sudden and intense that I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. How many? At least 3 that Rico mentioned, maybe more. Derek's voice was grim. He calls it trading up, finds women who are married to guys with money, convinces them they deserve better, then helps himself to whatever assets he can access during the divorce proceedings. Son of a bitch is running a con game. Gets worse. According to Rico, Brandon's got a bet going with some of his friends about how much he can get Jenna to steal from you before the divorce is final. I thought about our joint accounts, the business credit cards that Jenna had access to, the safe deposit box where we kept important documents. How much damage could she do if she really tried? I need to make some calls, I said, standing up abruptly. Eddie, wait. Derek grabbed my arm. Don't do anything stupid. If you go after Brandon directly, you'll just end up in jail. I'm not going to touch him. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through contacts. I'm going to do something much worse. The first call was to my bank, freezing all joint accounts and credit cards. The second was to my lawyer, updating my will and removing Jenna as beneficiary on my life insurance. The third was to my business insurance agent, making sure Jenna couldn't make any claims against the shop. But the fourth call was the important one. Hello, Mrs. Kessler. This is Eddie Parrish. I believe your son Brandon is dating my wife. Brandon's mother, it turned out, was a pillar of the local community, president of the garden club, treasurer of the Methodist Church, and wife of the man who owned half the commercial real estate downtown. She was also, according to Detective Lacey's research, completely unaware of her son's extracurricular activities. I'm sorry, Mr. Parrish, but there must be some mistake. Brandon is engaged to a lovely girl named Catherine. They're planning a spring wedding. Ma'am, I think we need to meet. An hour later, I was sitting in the Kesslers' immaculate living room, showing Mrs. Kessler the same evidence I'd shown Jenna. The elderly woman's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, horror, and finally, cold fury.
Merry Christmas, gentlemen.
That little harlot, she whispered, staring at a photo of Jenna and Brandon kissing outside the Marriott. And my Brandon. How could he do this to Catherine? I don't think Catherine knows, I said gently, just like I didn't know until recently. Mrs. Kessler stood up abruptly and walked to the window, her back straight and rigid. Mr. Parrish, I want you to know that the Kessler family does not condone this behavior. Brandon was raised better than this. I'm sure he was, ma'am. She turned back to me, her eyes sharp and determined. What do you need from me? Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just consequences. What kind of consequences? I pulled out my notebook and showed her my plans. Brandon's business depends on reputation and family connections. Your husband owns the building where his dealership is located, correct? Among other properties, yes. And Brandon's engaged to Catherine Morrison, whose father owns Morrison Construction, the largest construction company in the county. Mrs. Kessler's eyes were beginning to gleam with understanding. You're thinking about business relationships. I'm thinking about natural consequences. When word gets out about Brandon's activities, how do you think Mr. Morrison is going to feel about having him as a son-in-law? How are your husband's other tenants going to feel about sharing space with someone who destroys marriages for sport? Mrs. Kessler sat back down, folding her hands in her lap. You want to destroy his business? I want to let his business destroy itself. All I'm going to do is make sure the right people have the right information. And in return? Brandon disappears from my wife's life permanently. No contact, no romantic reunion, no riding off into the sunset together. Mrs. Kessler was quiet for a long moment, studying the photos spread across her coffee table. Finally, she looked up at me with steel in her eyes. Mr. Parrish, you have my full cooperation. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in small-town politics and social warfare. Mrs. Kessler, it turned out, was not just well-connected, she was the spider at the center of a web that included every influential family in the county. When she decided to share certain information about her son's moral failings, word spread like wildfire through the community. The first domino fell when Catherine Morrison's mother called off the engagement after Mrs. Kessler showed her the evidence. Catherine, a sweet girl who taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school, was devastated but grateful to learn the truth before the wedding. The second domino was Mr. Morrison himself, who immediately pulled his construction company's fleet account from Kessler Luxury Motors. In a small city, losing a contract worth $200,000 a year sends a message that everyone understands. But the real damage came from Derek's social media campaign. Using Melissa's accounts, he began posting screenshots of Rico's Instagram stories, showing him with multiple women over the past year. The post went viral in our small community, with local wives sharing and commenting about men who can't be trusted. Rico's carefully crafted image as a successful, eligible bachelor crumbled overnight. His follower count plummeted, his business partnerships dissolved, and several of his female friends came forward with their own stories about his deceptive behavior. Meanwhile, Detective Lacey continued her surveillance, providing me with a steady stream of intelligence about Jenna and Brandon's activities. They were staying at Brandon's downtown condo, but the relationship was already showing signs of strain. Apparently, being exposed as a cheater and a con artist was putting pressure on their romantic fantasy. She's been calling you, Lacey reported during one of our weekly meetings. Brandon doesn't know. She uses a burner phone when he's at work. I know. I've been letting it go to voicemail. You should listen to them. They're illuminating. That night, I sat in my workshop and played through 17 voicemail messages from my estranged wife. The progression was fascinating from a psychological standpoint. The first few were angry, accusing me of ruining her life and destroying her relationship. The middle ones were bargaining, promising to end things with Brandon if I'd take her back. The last few were desperate, begging me to answer the phone because she had important information to share. The final message, left just that morning, was different. Eddie, please call me back. You don't understand what Brandon is really like. I made a terrible mistake, and now I'm trapped. He's not who I thought he was, and I think he might be dangerous. Please, I just need someone to talk to. I deleted the message and went back to work. The next phase of my plan required more direct action. I'd been patient, methodical, letting social pressure and business consequences do most of the work. But Brandon was proving more resilient than I'd expected. His dealership was struggling, his social standing was damaged, but he hadn't broken yet. It was time to get personal. Saturday morning, I drove to the downtown farmers market, where I knew Brandon would be showing off his custom Porsche. He had a standing appointment every weekend to display the car and network with potential customers. Old habits die hard, even when your reputation is circling the drain. I found him standing beside his pristine silver 911, talking to a young couple who clearly couldn't afford what he was selling. He looked tired, stressed, and significantly less polished than in the photos Detective Lacey had taken months earlier. I waited until the couple walked away, then approached. Nice car, I said casually. Brandon turned, and his face went pale when he recognized me. Eddie, we need to talk. I don't think we do. I walked slowly around the Porsche, admiring the paint job and custom details. Must be nice having expensive toys. Look, about Jenna? What about her? I stopped directly in front of him, close enough to see the sweat beading on his forehead. You mean my wife, who you've been screwing for 4 months while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle. It's not like that. We're in love, I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Love? Is that what you call it when you run a con game on married women? His expression shifted, the fake sincerity replaced by something colder. I don't know what you think you know. I know about the others, at least 3 before Jenna, probably more. I know about the bets you make with your friends about how much you can steal during divorce proceedings. I know about your little network with Rico and Melissa. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I know exactly what kind of man you are, Brandon. He tried to step back but bumped into his car. You can't prove any of that. I don't have to prove it, I just have to share it. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of a group text message. 47 people received this information this morning. Contractors, business owners, city council members, church leaders. Your reputation was already damaged. Now it's destroyed. Brandon's face cycled through anger, fear, and desperation. You son of a bitch. You've ruined everything. I haven't ruined anything. I've just revealed what was already there. I started walking away, then turned back. Oh, and Brandon, stay away from my wife. Whatever game you two are playing, it's over. You can't tell me what to do. I'm not telling you, I'm informing you, because the next time I have to deal with you, it won't be a conversation. That evening, Derek called with an update on Melissa and Rico's situation. It's falling apart fast, he reported. Rico's been cut off from his family's money, and Melissa's starting to realize she backed the wrong horse. They had a screaming fight outside her apartment last night. What kind of fight? The kind where she threw his clothes out the window and changed her locks. He's been calling me, wanting to work something out. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell. Derek's voice was stronger than it had been 2 weeks earlier. I also told him that if he contacts Melissa again, I'll make sure his remaining business partners know about his creative accounting practices. Creative accounting? Turns out Rico's been skimming from his social media sponsorships and not reporting the income. The IRS would be very interested in his tax returns for the past 3 years. I smiled. Derek was learning. What about Melissa? She wants to reconcile, says she made a mistake and wants to work things out. Derek was quiet for a moment. I told her I'd think about it. Will you? Hell no. But I want her to think there's a chance while I figure out how to get my stuff back from her place. We were both learning that revenge was more satisfying when it was methodical and complete. That night, I didn't go straight home. I drove to the old fishing spot on the river, parked under the cottonwoods, and sat on the tailgate with a six-pack I didn't really want. The water was black glass under the moon, reflecting stars like scattered diamonds. 10 years ago, Jenna and I had come here after shifts, her from the salon, me from the shop, sharing cheap beer and big dreams. We'd planned the house, the kids, the life, all of it gone now, washed downstream like driftwood. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Jenna. 23 missed calls, a flood of texts, shifting from pleading to furious. I'm sorry, I was blind. You're throwing away everything we had. If you don't answer, I'll come to the house. Brandon meant nothing. You're my home. I turned the phone face down. The silence felt better than any reply. 2 days later, the final battle arrived in the form of a knock at my door at 9 p.m. I opened it to find Jenna on the porch, eyes red-rimmed, clutching a duffel bag like a lifeline. Behind her, Brandon's lifted Tacoma idled at the curb, headlights off. He stayed inside, coward to the end. I left him, she announced, voice trembling. Kicked him out of the apartment. I have nowhere else to go tonight. I leaned against the doorframe. Motel 6 is 10 minutes west. Eddie, please, just one night. I'll sleep on the couch. Tomorrow I'll figure something out. No. Her lip quivered. This is still my house, too. Half the mortgage is in my name. Was, I corrected. I refinanced last month. Your name's off the deed. Bank statements are in the kitchen if you want to see. Her face crumpled. You planned this. You waited until I was desperate. I planned for my future, I said. Yours stopped being my responsibility the day you booked that first hotel room. Brandon chose that moment to step out of the truck, swaggering up the walk like a man who still believed charm could fix anything. Hey, buddy, he called, hands raised in mock surrender. Let's talk this out like adults. I didn't move. You're on my property. Leave. He ignored me, turning to Jenna. Babe, grab your bag. We'll figure out another place. She shook her head violently. I'm not going back with you. Brandon's smile faltered. Come on, you're emotional. You don't mean that. I do. Her voice cracked but held. I saw the messages tonight. 3 other women. One of them is 17, Brandon, 17. His face darkened. You went through my phone? You left it unlocked on the counter while you showered. I saw everything. Brandon glanced at me, calculating. She's lying to get sympathy. Jenna laughed, a broken sound. I have screenshots. I already forwarded them to your wife. The color drained from his face. His wife, president of the PTA, deacon at the Baptist church, hadn't known until tonight. "You bitch," he hissed. "Get off my property," I repeated quietly. He took one step toward Jenna, hand raised. I moved faster, placing myself between them. "Touch her and I'll break your arm," I said. My voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of months of restrained rage. He hesitated, looked at my hands, grease-stained, calloused, capable, then back toward his truck. "This isn't over," he muttered. "For you, it's just beginning," I said. He peeled out, tires spitting gravel. Jenna sagged against the porch rail. "He'll lose everything now. His wife, his job, his dad owns the dealership. They'll fire him." I felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. "That's his mess." She looked up at me, eyes pleading one last time. "Eddie, can I at least come in for a glass of water? 5 minutes?" I studied her, the woman I'd loved since we were 19, who'd once known how I took my coffee, who'd cried in my arms when her dad died, now a stranger wearing her face. "No," I said gently. "You need to go." "Where?" "Anywhere but here." She picked up the duffel, shoulders bowed. At the bottom of the steps, she paused. "I really did love you," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but you loved the idea of something exciting more, and that killed what we had?" She nodded, tears falling freely now, and walked to her car, an older Civic I'd helped her buy years ago. The engine turned over on the third try. She drove away slowly, taillights disappearing around the corner. I closed the door, locked it, and for the first time in months, the house felt truly quiet. No tension humming in the walls, no waiting for the next lie. The next weeks brought the epilogue. Brandon's wife filed for divorce the day after Jenna sent the screenshots. His father stripped him of management duties at the dealership, demoted him to lot attendant until the scandal died down. Word spread fast in our small town, PTA meetings, Little League games, church potlucks. He lasted 3 weeks before packing for Dallas, tail between his legs. Jenna moved into a studio apartment above the laundromat. She took a receptionist job at a dentist's office, started night classes for medical billing. Some evenings, I'd see her at the grocery store, pushing a cart with off-brand everything, eyes down. We never spoke, but once she offered a small, sad nod. I returned it, to closure, not forgiveness. I sold the house, too many memories embedded in the walls, and bought 10 acres outside town with a double-wide and a steel shop twice the size of the old one. Business boomed without Jenna's spending draining the accounts. I hired 2 mechanics, took weekends off, started fishing again. One Saturday in early spring, I was at the river when a truck pulled up beside mine. Jenna's friend Marissa climbed out, hesitant. "She asked me to give you this," Marissa said, handing over an envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Eddie, I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know I understand now what I destroyed. I see you thriving, and I'm glad, even if it hurts. You were always the better part of us. I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't make those choices again. Thank you for the years you gave me. I'm sorry I couldn't give them back in the same condition. Jenna." I folded the letter, tucked it into my tackle box, and cast my line into the current. The war was over. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd won my life back. Clean, honest, mine. The river kept moving, carrying everything downstream, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was moving forward with it. The end came during the annual Riverside Festival, a 3-day celebration that draws thousands of people to our downtown area. It's the kind of event where everyone sees everyone, where reputations are made and destroyed in the span of a conversation. I'd been planning this moment for weeks, coordinating with Derek, Detective Lacey, and even Mrs. Kessler to ensure maximum impact. The goal wasn't just to end things with Jenna and Brandon, it was to make sure they could never pull this con on anyone else. Saturday afternoon, the festival was in full swing. Food trucks lined Main Street, local bands played on 3 different stages, and families strolled through the craft booths enjoying the perfect weather. I was working the Chamber of Commerce booth, representing local businesses and making connections. That's when I saw them. Jenna and Brandon were walking hand in hand through the crowd, apparently having reconciled their differences. Jenna was wearing a new dress, red silk that probably cost more than most people's weekly salary, and Brandon was back to his polished, confident self. They looked like the perfect couple, successful and beautiful and completely in love. The sight of them together, flaunting their relationship at a community event where everyone knew my story, filled me with a cold rage that I'd been suppressing for weeks. It was time to end this. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text message. Now. Within minutes, Derek appeared at my booth. "You sure about this?" "I'm sure. Once we do this, there's no going back." Good. Derek nodded and disappeared back into the crowd. Phase 1 was in motion. 20 minutes later, I heard the commotion from the main stage. Rico had been scheduled to give a presentation about social media marketing for small businesses. Instead, the large screen behind the stage was displaying a slideshow of his Instagram posts, along with captions identifying each woman he'd been photographed with and the lies he'd told about their relationships. The crowd was buzzing with shocked laughter and whispered conversations. Rico tried to stop the presentation, but the technical crew, who'd been paid very well to ensure the show went on, claimed they were having equipment difficulties. While everyone was distracted by Rico's public humiliation, I made my way through the crowd toward Jenna and Brandon. They were standing near the beer garden, watching the chaos on stage with obvious concern. "Enjoying the show?" I asked, appearing beside them. Jenna jumped like she'd been electrocuted. "Eddie, what are you doing here?" "It's a community festival. I'm part of the community." I smiled at Brandon, who was looking around nervously. Unlike some people. "We should go," Brandon muttered, taking Jenna's arm. "Actually, I think you should stay. The best part is coming up." As if on cue, the slideshow on the main stage changed. Now it was displaying photos of Brandon and Jenna together, along with photos of Brandon's previous targets. The caption read, "Serial homewrecker, protect your marriage." The crowd's attention shifted from amused gossip to genuine shock. I could see people pointing, whispering, pulling out their phones to take pictures. "You son of a bitch," Brandon snarled, stepping toward me. "I wouldn't," I said calmly. "Not here, not in front of all these witnesses. You've destroyed my business, my reputation, my life. I've revealed your business, your reputation, your life. There's a difference." Jenna was staring at the screen in horror. "Eddie, please make it stop." "I can't stop the truth, Jenna. Nobody can." The final phase began when Mrs. Morrison, Catherine's mother and one of the most respected women in the community, took the stage microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice carrying clearly over the crowd, "I want to share some information about the importance of protecting our families from predators who target married women for financial gain." What followed was a detailed, devastating account of Brandon's pattern of behavior, delivered with the authority of someone whose word was unquestionable in our community. Mrs. Morrison had photos, dates, and testimonials from previous victims who'd agreed to come forward. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Brandon's face had gone from red to white to green. "This is slander. I'll sue all of you." "With what money?" I asked. "Your dealership is bankrupt, your family has disowned you, and your business partners have fled. You're finished in this town." "We'll go somewhere else," Jenna said desperately. "Start over." "Where?" "This is the internet age, Jenna. This story is already online, already spreading. There's nowhere to run from your reputation anymore." I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. Derek had been busy. The festival presentation was being live-streamed on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thousands of people were watching, sharing, commenting. "You're both toxic now," I continued. "No decent person will want anything to do with you. No employer will hire you. No community will welcome you. You've made yourselves into pariahs." Brandon lunged at me then, his composure finally cracking completely. But I was ready for him. I stepped aside, letting his momentum carry him into a nearby table full of craft beer samples. The crash was spectacular, drawing even more attention to our little drama. Security guards appeared immediately, restraining Brandon as he tried to get back to his feet. "He attacked me," Brandon shouted. "Did you see that? He attacked me." "I saw you trip," said Mickey, my shop foreman, who'd been watching from nearby. "Clumsy of you." "We all saw you trip," agreed Mrs. Harrow, my elderly neighbor who never missed a good piece of gossip. "Looked like you'd been drinking," added Derek, appearing with a beer in his hand. "Shame, really. Public intoxication at a family event." Brandon was escorted away by security, still protesting his innocence. The crowd began to disperse, but I could hear the conversation starting, the story being retold and embellished with each telling. Jenna stood alone, abandoned and humiliated, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to me?" "I didn't do anything to you. You did this to yourself." I looked at her one last time, this woman I'd once loved enough to marry. "You chose this path when you decided I wasn't enough for you. Now you get to live with the consequences." "I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem anymore." I walked away, leaving her standing in the wreckage of her choices. Behind me, I could hear Mrs. Harrow offering helpful suggestions about bus schedules and women's shelters in other cities. The festival continued around us, but the mood had shifted. People were more animated, more talkative, energized by the drama they'd witnessed. By evening, the story would be the talk of every dinner table in town. By Monday, it would be office gossip in 3 counties. Derek found me an hour later, sitting at the Chamber of Commerce booth and actually managing to conduct some legitimate business. "How do you feel?" "Free," I said, and meant it. Rico's been arrested for public intoxication and disturbing the peace. Apparently, he didn't handle his presentation well. "And Brandon?" "Banned from the festival grounds. Last I saw, he was trying to convince a taxi driver to take him to the airport." "Good." Derek sat down beside me, looking satisfied in a way I'd never seen before. "Melissa came by earlier. Wanted to know if I was behind Rico's humiliation." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that actions have consequences, and she chose the wrong side." He grinned. "Then I told her that her stuff would be on the curb by 6 p.m., and if she wanted it, she'd better bring a truck." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the festival continue around us. Families laughed, children played, couples walked hand in hand without deception or betrayal. It was the way things were supposed to be. "Think they'll really leave town?" Derek asked. "Brandon will. His family's money is cut off, his business is destroyed, and everyone knows what he is. He's got no choice." I thought about Jenna, probably still wandering the festival grounds in her expensive dress, finally understanding that actions have consequences. Jenna might try to stick around, but it won't work. She's unemployable here now. Good. As the sun set over the festival, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war was over. Justice had been served, and I was finally free to rebuild my life on my own terms. 6 months later, I heard through the grapevine that Jenna was working as a waitress in a truck stop 3 states away. Brandon had moved back in with his parents in another city, trying to rebuild his life from scratch. Derek and I remained friends, bonding over our shared experience of betrayal and revenge. He never did take Melissa back, instead meeting a nice woman at a church social who appreciated his quiet strength and loyalty. As for me, I threw myself into my business, expanding into new markets and building something I could be proud of. The shop prospered, my reputation in the community was stronger than ever, and for the first time in years, I was genuinely happy. Sometimes people ask if I regret how things ended, if I think I went too far. The answer is simple. I don't regret protecting myself and my community from predators. I don't regret demanding consequences for betrayal, and I don't regret choosing justice over forgiveness. Some people deserve second chances. Others deserve exactly what they get. Jenna and Brandon got exactly what they deserved.